Hi guys, on to Rufio, it's Joe here. So today I wanted to bring you a deck profile in a slightly different format than we would normally do things. Firstly, let me apologise if there's any weird noises in the background. I live in the world's noisiest house. If you watched any of my old videos, you'll know I make this disclaimer at pretty much any videos I do at home. It gets insanely loud in here, so hopefully there's nothing weird. I live right next to the bathroom as well, which just makes it even worse. Anyway, we'll get stuck in. Like I say, originally I had the physical deck profile for this for you. This has been the case with a whole bunch that I'd recorded the other day. And unfortunately I had a bit of a technical glitch, so we've decided to go on YGO Pro for you and do a cover of what we'd originally intended to show you on here. However, I may stick with this format if people like it. It's a little bit cleaner, it's a little bit crisper, and it just gives me a bit more leeway to work with. So we'll see how it goes, but maybe we'll go back to the old style, who knows. Anyway, we'll get stuck in for you. So essentially this deck can be run on a little bit of a budget. You can run it without the extravagances and that kind of thing. The Gravekeepers themselves can actually get weirdly pricey depending on where you live in the world, or depending on what language you kind of prefer them in. For here in Europe, I know in the UK these are quite pricey, but if you order them in, say, like Italian or something like that, you can get them for like a quarter of the price, which is just insane. So anyway, let's get stuck into the deck profile. We'll have a discussion about what the choices are. I definitely think that this is a really good stun build for the format. There's definitely some ways to maybe improve this. It was indirectly hurt by having Terraforming hit, as were many of the rogue decks that are out there, as you'll very well know. So let's just get stuck in anyway. We'll stop waffling and we'll get stuck into what you really want to see. So we have triple copies of Gravekeeper's Heretics. So this is really good in tandem with Torrential Tribute. So when a lot of the time when you go first, you can just summon this set Torrential Tribute. Your opponent summons, let them commit to the point where they've got something important on board. You flip Torrential Tribute, you keep your monster, they lose theirs, and the next turn you're going to start pushing for damage and punishing them for overcommitting to the board. We have triple copies of Gravekeeper's Commandant. So this is really, really important at the moment. Again, because we've lost a copy of Terraforming, which we've now replaced with Metaverse, but we'll discuss that in a moment. Having Gravekeeper's Commandant just helps you get there. A lot of the time as well, this is really, really good hand trap bait. So for example, if I've got Gravekeeper's Steely in hand, I will use this to try and search Necrovalley. Inevitably they will Ash it because they really don't want Necrovalley to be on the field. Trust me, this hurts so many decks, it's unreal. And you can just add it back with Steely and just redo it because it's not once per turn, but it's just absolutely insane. And of course, when it's someone with Necrovalley's on the field, it's a 2100 beta, so what's not to like? Unfortunately, they did make it Earth, which was a little bit dumb. If it was Dark, it'd just be so much better. We have triple copies of Spiritualist, so this is going to help tutor out your Supernaturalist, which is essentially a win condition of the deck. You're going to stun your opponent, summon Supernaturalist, and they're basically not going to be able to break your board. They're going to really struggle. They're going to go on the defensive, and once they do that, they're in real trouble. You're going to start punishing them for doing so. So yeah, basically anyway, once Necrovalley's on the field, this allows you to do a fusion summon with itself, and then Gravekeeper's either on the field or in hand, and you're going to shoot that out. It's normally going to give you a 3300 Supernaturalist, which is just crazy. Again, this is also hand trap bait, so a lot of the time this will get hit, so don't be surprised if that happens. We have triple copies of Recruiter, so a lot of the time when you're going first and you don't see the right monsters or you don't see the right cards, you have to play a little bit defensive and you have to just hope that your opponent can't OTK you. Now, hopefully with everything else that we've got here, you're not going to find yourself in that position too often, and your opponent hopefully can't push for enough damage to kill you, and then it's going to allow you to continue to play later on down the line and see the things that you need to see. And this is just going to help you search and dig for those cards that you need that little bit quicker. We have triple copies of Headman. So Headman is going to special summon from the grave, ignoring Necrovalley's effect. So a lot of the time I will summon this, and then this will tutor out my Spiritualist, which will allow me to go into the fusion and play on from there, and then my fusion will be 3200. So it just gives you some options basically to go into. And that is it for the actual Gravekeeper monsters themselves. I am running one copy of Artifact Scythe. This is really, really good when it goes off. Unfortunately, as you all know, with any one of that you run, you will see it in every opening hand. And if you run 3 ofs, you never see them. So unfortunately, you do seem to always open Scythe. Now, the only problem with Scythe itself is that if you summon it on its own, because it goes to the grave to activate its effect, Necrovalley will prevent it from summoning. So you don't really want to be in a position where you have it in your hand. Unfortunately, that is the nature of having cards like this in your deck. But it is so good that when you go first, and if you do see Sanctum and you can get this out, you normally skip your opponent's turn in most cases. You could run Trap Trick if you have access to those. It's something to consider, but certainly Scythe is very good, but do be aware that sometimes you get caught off guard with it. Now, Pot of Extravagance is a less budget-friendly card, we'll say, but it is so good in any rogue build that you play that doesn't really need the extra deck, that it's definitely worth running triple copies of this. Now, if you don't have this, you could forego these in place of something like, say, Card of Demise or Pot of Duality or Pot of Desires, depending on your preference. Do be aware that there are some drawbacks that can interfere with this, such as like not special summoning and that kind of thing. So Pot of Extravagance definitely the best one, but you have other options out there. Now, Royal Tribute, this was really kind to us on the list. I think it's insane that they brought this back to 2, but they did. Punishes so many decks, so many decks. You go first, you set up your entire board, and you just drop this, and your opponent loses half of their hand. Now, of course, there is a risk because you hit things like dangers, and then you get super punished for doing so. But most of the time, you're going to give your opponent trouble. Now, in normal cases, they would enjoy their stuff being in the grave for the most part, but we've got Necrovalley, so they don't. We're running 1 copy of Hidden Temples. Now, this does have the drawback of needing Gravekeeper's monster and Necrovalley on the field in order to be able to be played. But it does stop your opponent from special summoning, both players, in fact, with anything other than Gravekeepers. But for you, that doesn't matter. But for them, it usually does. And again, a lot of the time, once this is on the field, they find themselves in real trouble. We have 2 copies of Gravekeeper Steely. Again, just 2 copies of this. I think 3 gets a little bit cloggy because we don't run a massive monster lineup. We actually run it very spell and trap heavy, which is unusual for a deck in the modern format. So again, it's just going to help you get those cards back in hand and be able to reuse them. But yeah, I think at more than 2 it bricks. At less than 2 you don't see it enough. 2 is just a perfect number, I think. We have triple copies of Necrovalley Thrones. This is going to either basically rotor a card for you, so it's going to add 1 from deck to hand, or it's going to allow you to do an additional normal summon, which can be really important, because basically every monster in this deck needs to be normal summoned. We have triple copies of Necrovalley. It's the reason this deck exists and the reason the deck is good. Make sure you get the right up-to-date text for this, because they all vary and they're all crazy different. If you're not sure what the up-to-date text is, you can see on screen, but you can also check on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Database for that as well. We have 1 copy of Terraforming. It's at 1. If it was at 3, we'd be running 3 for sure. You need to see Necrovalley as quickly as possible. We have 1 copy of Metaverse, not as strong as Terraforming. We are using it in place of the fact that we lost the second one. However, there is some advantage to this in that you can use it to activate Necrovalley during your opponent's turn. So let's say they pop the Necrovalley you've got on the field and they think that that's it, they're now clear, free and clear, they've got rid of it, they've used their only Twin Twisters, and then you flip Metaverse and now they're in trouble all over again, and they've got no way to get rid of it. They've committed too many cards to try and get rid of it, and now they're just in real trouble. So Metaverse does have its own merits and its own strengths to consider using it. We have triple copies of Sanctum because we want to see them over Scythe ideally, but they double up as like an MST. Well, they can target 1 card in the field and destroy it if they get popped by your opponent, which a lot of the time, because you're running so much back row, they are going to try and do. We have triple copies of Infinite Impermanence. Again, this is up to you. You could run hand traps, but I find that particularly if you're running, like, say, a Demise particular build, you don't want them in your hand. You don't want to lose them. So this is definitely good because you can set it, especially against things like Pendulum and that kind of stuff. You can also switch off their scales. It just doubles up. It's an insane card. If you've played with Impermanence, you know how good it is. We run 1 copy of Necrovalley Temple, so this is going to help you keep recurring your Necrovalley itself, because in case they pop it, it can just keep bringing it back, and of course you reduce their attack and defense, which is just really nice. I think multiples of this get cloggy, so just 1 is fine, especially since we can search it with the fusion. And much the same for Imperial Tombs and Necrovalley. Again, more than 1, because it has this drawback of having to have Gravekeepers on the field and Necrovalley in order to be used. It can get a little bit cloggy, so at 1 it's fine because it can be searched. I don't really like more copies than this, but you can definitely up it if you feel the need to do so. And finally, we have 2 copies of Torrential Tribute. We're going to punish our opponent for extending way too much because our monsters are going to be protected and theirs aren't. Not in all cases, but you'll see what I mean when you start playing. We then move on to our extra deck, so because we're running Extravagance, we're just running 3 elves of everything that we could potentially use. Triple copies of Unicorn seems a bit silly, but it is what it is. It's just for the demonstration purposes for the video. So we're running triple copies of Gravekeeper's Supernaturalist. This is our win condition of the deck. This is going to help us search Necrovalley and Gravekeeper cards during every end phase. It's going to be a massive beta. It's going to protect our Necrovalley as well as itself. It's just absolutely insane. This card is dumb. The amount of people that see it and don't realise how good it is until they've got it on the opposing field, and then they're in real trouble. We have triple copies of Witch's Apprentice, It's going to help boost most of our attacks. Not all of them, but most of them for sure. Again, it's probably any other card that you really go into. And then finally, we just finish off with this Nightmare package here, 3 of each. Again, you would probably never actually run this. You could basically just run any utility cards you like. This is just for demonstration. Ideally, you'd run 3 ofs, because then you always have access to them, because in theory, you shouldn't banish all 3 copies. But that does occasionally come up. So it's just a nice example there. The important ones are that you're running 3 of each of these, so that you always have access to them when you go off with your pot of extravagance. Thank you very much for checking in, guys. Hopefully this has been helpful for you. If you're checking out Gravekeeper decks and thinking about running them, certainly try this list out and see how you get on. Drop down in the comments if there are any other decks that you'd like to see. Thank you very much for checking in, guys. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. I'm afraid that's all we have time for in this video. If by chance you haven't had enough of listening to me waffle at you through a video about a children's card game, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. The links are on the screen, or if you're feeling really lazy, you can click the links in the description. While you're at it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future content too. It'll make me smile, I promise. And who can ask for more than that? Thanks for watching, see you in the next one.